Welcome to this explainer. Right now there is a major breaking Axios report about a one-page memo, a single page that might actually pause Project Freedom and put an end to the hot war between the US and Iran. We're going to impartially unpack exactly what this reporting says, looking closely at the proposed geopolitical shifts and mapping out what this all means for the global landscape. Let's get right into it.
To keep things structured, here's our roadmap. We'll look at the proposed deal itself, the specific terms of the agreement, the profound leverage dilemma, and finally, a long-term strategy for bypassing the Strait of Hormuz.
Starting with Section 1, the proposed U.S.-Iran deal and stopping the hot war.
So the core of this reporting revolves around something incredibly brief, literally a one-page memo. The White House reportedly believes they are on the verge of a framework with Iran that would effectively hit pause on what President Trump called Project Freedom. That's the intense military pressure campaign we've seen over the last few months. Now, the crucial context to remember here is that sure, the immediate military operations, the hot war, have stopped. But honestly, nothing is definitively resolved. This is really just a tentative pause. It's designed to set the stage for much deeper nuclear negotiations down the road. Basically, it's a stepping stone, not the final destination.
Former Ambassador Kurt Volker points out a really interesting dynamic about this exact moment. He notes that recent military operations have, well, eliminated Iran's power projection capabilities. But the regime itself, it is still firmly in place. Volker suggests that unless there's a much larger military operation specifically aimed at regime change, this one-page memo might actually be the most viable deal on the table right now for decision makers. You have to deal with the power structure that actually exists, and right now, that structure is clearly looking for a pause.
Let's move to Section 2, Terms of the Agreement and Balancing the Ledger.
When you look at the specific give and take being reported, the ledger is actually pretty clear. On one side, you have the U.S. concessions. The U.S. would agree to lift certain sanctions and release previously frozen Iranian funds. And we're talking about assets that often number in the billions of dollars. On the flip side, representing Iran's concessions, they would commit to a strict moratorium on nuclear enrichment. It's a classic diplomatic trade, right? Immediate economic relief exchanged for a hard stop on nuclear development.
But wait, there's another massive layer to this framework. Both sides would apparently also agree to lift restrictions around transit in the highly contested Strait of Hormuz. But, and this is a big but, there is a huge contingency attached. Every single one of these terms depends entirely on a final, detailed agreement actually getting signed. If those future negotiations fall apart, well, the possibility of jumping right back into a hot war is very much left on the table.
Which brings us to Section 3, the leverage dilemma and a historical comparison.
So what is the core dilemma for the U.S. administration here? It's the profound concern over losing strategic economic leverage. The report explicitly notes that Iran's economy is currently crippled, which, let's be real, is exactly what brought them to the negotiating table in the first place. Lifting sanctions and releasing potentially billions of dollars, that seriously risks throwing away that exact leverage. Plus, echoing concerns from conservatives about previous administrations, there is a very deep fear that any released capital won't actually go toward rebuilding Iran domestically. Instead, it might be used to finance regional wars and prop up proxy groups all across the Middle East. It is a massive diplomatic gamble.
To fully grasp this, the report compares this new, tentative proposal to the previous baseline, which is the Obama-era JCPOA. According to former Ambassador Volker, this new framework might actually represent a slight improvement over the JCPOA. Why? Because while the new proposal does reportedly allow for some level of enrichment, it balances that out by putting a much tougher inspection regime in place than we saw in the previous deal.
Still, we absolutely have to keep this vital caveat from Ambassador Volker in mind. Nothing is done until it is all done. This framework is incredibly fragile. Because we're just talking about a memo here and not a comprehensive treaty, the United States completely retains the ability to instantly revert to hostility. They can snap back that economic pressure in a heartbeat if Iran doesn't treat the deal fairly or violates the terms of the pause. This is an agreement based on immediate compliance, absolutely not on trust.
Okay, on to our final section, bypassing the strait and the long game.
To really understand the long game here, you have to picture the map. The Strait of Hormuz is a massive global choke point. At its narrowest point, it's just 21 miles wide, yet a huge percentage of the world's traded oil passes right through it. Historically, Iran has been able to use really minimal military means, sometimes just small fast boats or sea mines, to threaten transit. And when shipping is threatened there, it wreaks total havoc on global supply chains, which means a direct, immediate hit to your wallet at the gas pump. It is a major point of leverage for Tehran.
To counter this massive vulnerability, the U.S. is reportedly backing a sweeping, long-term proposal. Step 1 involves building a vast network of new energy pipelines across the region.
Step 2 is the ultimate goal of those pipelines, to physically bypass the Strait of Hormuz entirely for energy exports. And Step 3 is the geopolitical result, permanently removing the dependence of allied nations, specifically the UAE and Qatar, on sending their ships through that incredibly vulnerable choke point.
Now, if this pipeline network is actually built, the strategic implications are absolutely staggering. By ensuring that these nations are no longer dependent on the strait, Iran's ability to hold the global economy hostage is effectively made null and void. Their grip over regional shipping weakens considerably, and it entirely reshapes the balance of power in the Middle East, all without firing a single shot.
So we're left with a massive unknown. With fractured leadership in Tehran right now, can a fragile one-page memo really hold long enough to execute this kind of massive geopolitical shift? Or is this just a momentary pause before the next major shockwave? Thanks for tuning into this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.